Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started. Wait. Oh, we're good. So, hey, it's good to have you. I told you a while ago, I think I told you in 2020, I wanted to have you on. And sorry it's taken so long.
No, I was excited you reached out. I love your podcast. So I'm really honored to be here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you. I think, well, first of all, we're talking to Christina Elizabeth Smith. How do you say it? How do you say it? I can't say it. I'm not even going to try.
Oh, it's Amrta.
Amrta. Okay. Now,
yes.
You don't have the I there, right? Did you shorten that? Or am I crazy?
It's actually an ancient spelling of Amrta. So Amrta is ambrosia, and it's all through mythology. And
yes.
And there's different spellings of Amrta, and some is with the I, but the ancient spelling is, and I love origin stories, so I love chasing things all the way back.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to get into yours too.
Yeah, I found the ancient spelling, which is without the I, and I just liked it. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, see, that's cooler, but it is also cool because you don't know how to say it. I was like, Amrta?
Yeah. Okay. However you want to say it, that's fine.
Okay, so we're here with Christina Elizabeth Smith. Cool last name, by the way, and otherwise known as Amrta online. And I love that. We're going to get into that more. It's funny. There's a couple of reasons why I want to have you on, why I wanted to have you on. First of all, actually, there's about three. I wanted to get a chance to talk to you more because I know we've met a few times and we haven't really had a chance to have a real dialogue. I love your work also. And then three is
thank you, because
you're kind of a jack of all trades, which is something that I also relate to a lot. I started out punk ska band, acting. I came down here to act and paint, written some books, doing the podcast, doing art. And I know you were a dancer, you're an actress, you do fine art. So I love it. So I want to get into all that when we start talking, but, or I could just keep talking and you can just sit here and listen to me talk.
That's fine. I mean, I love it. I do love your story for that reason. I feel like it's really relatable, just always trying to keep that artistic channel open.
Yes.
That's why I love listening to your podcast. I love hearing you talk because I just so relate to that I think all the arts are so interconnected, and however you keep that artistic channel open is beautiful. So I love that about your story.
Yeah, and I love that about yours too. That's why I can't wait to get into it a bit. It's one of those things where you get a lot of pressure from people, I think, whether that's family members or just whatever, haters. It's well, you got to pick something and focus on it. And it's really, do we? I mean, I know there's a certain amount of time that you need to put into anything to master the craft. But hey, if you have that within you, you want to be an actress, you want to dance, you want to paint, you want to sing, whatever, you want to knit caps, I don't care what it is, you should be doing it. So I think that's great. And first of all, I want to start off by just seeing how you're doing. How are you doing these days? I know there's a lot of craziness still going on.
There is, and I know you like to not say, you say the virus that should not be named, I think is what you say. Yeah,
yes, exactly.
Which I love not giving it energy or power.
It's like Voldemort.
Exactly. It ebbs and flows. I think it's unrealistic to say I'm doing great. But I would also be lying to feel like I don't have a ton of gratitude during this time. Again, I feel really lucky that I have a space where I have all of these things that I pursue and I can do them in solitude because I live alone with my two crazy dogs. So, and I'm across the country from family. So That's been its own challenge, but I've done that for a long time anyway. I think this has just been a really strange time where I'll have days where I'm like, this is amazing. I don't have to go to these events. Like there is this great excuse. So I can really work on the things I want to work on and read the books I want to read. And then there are other days where I feel sometimes like I'm floating, where so much has changed in such a short amount of time that, finding my footing is really weird, where I've had that experience a lot during this year. So I think it's just been a year of really deep self-acceptance of wherever I am at that moment, letting it flow through and realizing that no state is permanent. Like I just have to realize we're all going through it, and just having a lot of grace with that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think everybody can relate to that on some level. It feels like we're all collectively bipolar these days. I feel the same way. It's like one day I'm like up and I'm like, yeah, I'm creating. I got all these avenues to create my stuff and sell my work still. And then other days I just feel like yesterday I dropped my work off at ShockBoxx and I missed a few people and my back was kind of hurting. So I had to get on the road and I was just like, man, I just feel like I was kind of excited to make a connection with some people, see some people there live, and I didn't see anybody. And then I saw other people online, hanging the show, and I was like, fuck, I really want to make that connection too. So yeah, we're all over the place right now, but I think you put that beautifully. So where's your family? How far away are you from them?
We're pretty spread out. So I grew up in Clarksville, Tennessee. So I have family there, my mom and my sister's family is there. And then my dad goes back and forth between Kentucky and Tennessee for his work. And then my brothers are outside DC. So
oh, wow.
We're all really close. Like I really am lucky that I really love my family.
Yeah.
But we are very spread out. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been, we're so lucky that we live during this time where we have all this technology to stay connected, but I'm very much an energy in the room kind of person. Like I want to hug people and just sit quietly with people, and you feel it when you don't get that for a long period of time,
Well, yeah, and then throw the pandemic into the mix and it's like, well, even if you wanted to, you can't. So where are you located in Los Angeles?
I am east side. I'm like Franklin Village area.
East side. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where I came from. Okay, cool. East side. So you have a drive too whenever you go to ShockBoxx? I
do, but it's funny. I was in New Orleans for a little bit for work, and I missed, I think I was in LA. I've been in LA since 2007. And, we all go through that period of like, oh, the traffic and all these things we hate.
Right.
And then I was in New Orleans and I missed LA so much that even traffic now, when I'm sitting in traffic, like driving out to ShockBoxx, and I love ShockBoxx so much that now when I'm driving in traffic, I still have that like kid feeling of like, I'm back in LA and the weather's so nice and I can listen to podcasts. It's just such a perspective shift of how much I missed LA. So yeah, it's definitely a drive and I feel it. Like I may go back out today and drop some more pieces off because I didn't realize people were bringing so many pieces for the program show. Oh,
did they? I see. I only brought 2 and I thought that was too many.
No, people were bringing and then I got I was like, oh man, I brought 1. I was like, maybe I should go sneak some other pieces. So, but now I kind of enjoy it. I like call people and I listen to podcasts and I've gotten used to the drive, I think.
Yeah, the drive is funny. It's kind of like, it's almost a little bit of a metaphor, it's like for life, you got to make your peace with the drive. Once you make your peace with it, it can be great. It can be a time of solitude. I do deep breathing sometimes when I'm driving and kind of meditate a bit and listen to podcasts. And so it can be that cool time when you're alone, but now it's like everybody's alone. So I don't know, but okay, cool. Well, yeah. So we've got the show coming up for anybody who's listening to this. It probably opened last Saturday, but it's still going on. It is called Dude, Unmute Yourself at ShockBoxx. And it's an all program artist show, which is cool. I'm really excited to be with everybody, not just the guys, not just the girls, but everybody's together finally. And welcome to the program. I think that's so awesome. Are you excited about it?
I am beyond excited about it. It just feels so lucky to be mixed in with all of you guys. I feel like there's so much to learn from all of you guys. And it's just been, it's been just a whirlwind in the best way. So yeah, I'm really stoked about it.
Cool. So how did you meet Mike originally?
Man, I met him again, like during the pandemic time. I may have started following like ShockBoxx a little pre-pandemic, but I just started getting involved and like really, I loved how energetic and just like he was putting so much out there and really involved in the artists in LA. And I just felt a specific energy coming out of Mike and ShockBoxx. And so
Definitely.
I just followed everything. And we met on Instagram and yeah, I just felt connected. Like he stayed connected with artists. He would engage. And I was like, this is unusually positive energy. Yeah. And then I submitted to, I believe it was the Intergalactic show.
Yes.
So one of the first shows, and then got in, and then it was just like building that relationship. No, that's a lie. I lied. I totally lied. It was the 2021 show was the first ShockBoxx show I submitted to.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that.
And then
I think we juried that.
Yeah. And then that was my first show, and then getting it. And I was just so stoked about that. And then started building a relationship, and he always had amazing feedback. And yeah, it was just a very impressive, real energy. And I was like, this is how I want to grow in the art world. Like no pretense, very open, very, really strong community. I just loved the energy.
Yeah, me too. I think it's rare, not only in LA, but in the art world in general, to have kind of a place that fosters so much creativity and feeds off of the energy of people coming in and really just kind of gets behind it and says, yeah, take this and run with it. Because so many other galleries are just like, stop, they're closing the doors. You have to try to beat down the door. And then when you do get in, you get kind of lost in the roster. But ShockBoxx is it's such a great opportunity. And if you can come and match that energy, then you're welcome. So yeah, I wanted to talk. I wasn't talking about you specifically. I know you do, but in general, for other artists listening too, if they want to, submit to ShockBoxx, I think you'll see that its doors are wide open. So you, Muka, and Amy kind of came in at the same time, right?
Yeah, it feels
sort
like
of?
it. I think like Muka and Amy were maybe a month before me.
Okay.
I want to say. Yeah, because I kind of I followed their work, and I loved their momentum. And yeah, that was another thing. It felt like everybody that was around the ShockBoxx family had that same energy too, just really engaging and really just excited to be making art and connecting. And that made the draw even stronger towards ShockBoxx. So I think, like they were maybe a month before me or something like that.
Okay, cool. Because it was funny when it started happening. I think the first time I ran into you, I was dropping off work too, and you kind of wandered in, and we all had masks and stuff. And sometimes with ShockBoxx, just local people just kind of wander in from the neighborhood. And I was like, I didn't know if you were local or whatever. And then I saw it at the end. I realized you were one of the artists, and I was like, oh, I should have talked to her more. But since then, we've obviously been talking online and now, which is great. But I'm looking forward to having all of us together in a live show, because those used to be so much fun. They get really good turnout. Have you been to a live show at ShockBoxx yet?
I have not. I am really excited about that.
Yeah, the community is awesome because, Mike's been there for a long time, him and his wife, and they were involved in the whole, did you hear about the whole lawsuit against, the drilling and everything? Yeah, so they have a really great community. Everybody just loves ShockBoxx and Mike, and everybody comes out and they turn out. So that's going to be fun. It's cool to see you three kind of coming into the gallery, bringing a new energy. That was the thing that Mike said. He's like, oh, we got these three new girls, and they're just bringing this like new energy to ShockBoxx. So it's cool to see that. And Muka and Amy, if you're listening, I'm going to have you on here at some point too. But it's just cool to see you guys bringing some new energy into the mix. So I wanted to talk to you about, well, let me give you your choice. How about that? Acting career or origin story first?
Maybe origin. We'll go with the origin and then lead into the acting. I think that makes sense, right?
that sounds perfect. Yeah, it'll probably be baked into there. So
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So start as early as you want and take as much time as you want.
Awesome. Yeah. It's cool. Well, I was born in Clarksville, Tennessee, which is a military town. So I grew up a military child. My dad was special forces my whole life. So I never I never had to move around because his specialty was just there. It only exists at Fort Campbell in Clarksville, Tennessee. So that was, in retrospect, I realized was an interesting way to grow up. But
can I just interject here really quick? Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just thinking it must have been really hard for you to date anybody. Dad, special forces, 3 brothers. Didn't you have 3 brothers?
I have 2 brothers.
Oh, 2 brothers.
And a sister. Yeah.
It's like, I'm afraid. Okay, sorry. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's always in there because he's, he was part of the Battle of Mogadishu. So which is the Black Hawk Down story. And went through Desert Shield, Desert Storm and all of that. Which we were, young, especially me, I was really tiny, but I remember so much. And I just thought everybody's dad did that.
Right. Right.
I just didn't really have much of the perspective that, dads stayed home and did that, did anything else until way later. But
so how often did you see him?
Not very. I mean, he was deployed sometimes for years at a time, sometimes depending on the mission. Some of the missions were more intense with special forces. They'll fly so much because he's a pilot. So if the missions are more intense, they'll do these 3-month stints and then come back and rest. But when he's back, the integration was also difficult because, you imagine you're in this war-torn situation and then you come back and you have these 4 kids that are trying to crawl all over you. And that was such a strange dynamic of you're not here and don't really know how to integrate when you are. I'll never forget my poor dad. He came back and my sister was in 8th grade at the time and she's 6 years older than me. And my mom told my dad, she's going to go to a party, an 8th grade party. And he was like, she can't be hanging out with 8th graders. And my mom was like, she's in 8th grade. She's in
8th grade. Yeah, but still, she should hang out with 6th graders.
But it was just, that integration process of, not being able to catch up. And how can you? You're living a life that is, I can only imagine. And also we knew we knew what was in the news was what our dad was going through. And it was, I didn't really process it until my 20s. And I moved out here and I was like, oh yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. It's almost got to be like putting your family in a time capsule, and then you go out and you come back and you expect them to be the same age, but everything's changed.
Yeah. And you can't really, the ball is rolling downhill and you can't really ever keep up with that. And it's the reverse. We couldn't really keep up with what was going on with him. And then if we tried, we didn't really want to absorb it because it was so traumatic,
Oh yeah.
There were a few times that he was shot down and we, couldn't hear anything. We didn't know anything. And sometimes the risk was the news will get it before the family gets it. And it was a very, we were acquainted with risk and death at a really, really early age. A lot of times.
And stress, right?
Yeah. Cause we just knew. And my mom was such she's Irish and German and very much a realist. So she wasn't going to paint a prettier picture than what was going on,
Oh yeah.
And
I've got Irish and German in me too.
Yeah. So that very just the reality.
That's my grandfather. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times the men that, that were my dad's friends would be there having a barbecue with us one weekend. And then we'd go to their memorial service the next weekend.
Oh my God.
And finally, I think when, I was a teenager, my mom was finally I can't do anymore. I can't go to any more memorial services. Like,
yeah,
no more taps. Like, we can't hear taps anymore. Like,
oh my God.
But
did you kids have to go to a lot of those too?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, wow.
And it was sort of the honoring and the facing and the, again, it's the facing the reality of what was going on. Same with like the Mike Durant story, which I don't know if you remember Mike Durant,
yes.
The prisoner of war. Like, he was a really close family friend. So when he was finally like rescued and first flown back in, we were on the military tarmac when he was first pulled off the plane in the States.
Oh, wow.
So, and I was in footy pajamas. I'll never forget. I was still wearing like little footy pajamas. And it was in the middle of the night. It was like 4 a.m. Like,
wow.
Yeah. And
how did you process that as a kid?
Oh, I didn't really, because my dad wasn't home yet. So it was that, like, is my dad going to come home like that? I didn't know how to process it. Because I would, because the hours were so weird. So they would come home, like my mom would wake us up in the middle of the night. We'd go onto the military base and they'd be brought out of these military aircraft. And I was always in my pajamas because I was tiny. And,
you were doing it before it was hip.
Yep, exactly. And I
sorry, not to make light of it.
No, it does not offend me at all.
Okay, good.
No, I just remember him being wheeled out like on some kind of like stretcher of some kind, and like being in my footy pajamas and being like, well, where's my dad? Is he gonna, just not knowing really where to put it.
Right.
So yeah, that was it. But it was also like, I say all of that, but it's also, I had a really beautiful childhood too. Like, we were always playing in the woods and I was really close with my siblings, and my mom was such a good mom and really involved and like always encouraged us to just pursue any extracurricular we wanted to. And
oh, that's good.
Yeah, she was very, very supportive of how we were each very individual in our, and never tried to like force us into any box,
That's great.
That was beautiful.
Well, it's interesting. I'm seeing, I mean, I have so many questions. So I'm going to let you finish, but yeah, I'm seeing where some of this, this feeling, this fire comes from too. And then having it be fostered as well is wonderful. I'm going to get into something a little later, a little dichotomy that I see kind of in your work, but I'm starting to see some of the seeds of that. But continue. So what age are we now about?
This was definitely younger, and then getting into like probably around, 8 or 9, I discovered dance, and that, that's when I started to really find art and how to process the stuff that felt really stuck inside of me,
Definitely.
Which I just found in dance class at like a YMCA and like begged my mom to do it because I had like a little girlfriend that was doing it. And yeah, I did that. And then the YMCA like lost funding and I lost my mind. So my mom was like, okay, we got to find another dance class.
All of a sudden, no more dance.
Yeah, no more dance. And so she did. She was amazing. She pursued like a dance studio there. And then that was kind of the end. I became so obsessed with dance and became like a touring competitive dancer and would dance like 5 hours after school every day. And
That's
then
so cool.
Yeah. And then tour on the weekends. And then my mom was so incredible. She was like a master seamstress. So she, in order to pay for my dance classes, because we couldn't really afford them, she would sew all of the costumes for my dance team and pay for my classes. Yeah.
So was it kind of like a barter system or did she?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, she would just, looking back at that, it's just so heroic of her to be like, I'm going to find a way to pay for these dance classes because they were so expensive. And she'd be like, okay, I will just offer to make all of the dance costumes. And she did, like, for a lot of kids. Like, it was a lot. And she did that for years. And
talk about, teaching you a good lesson, even as like an artist and actress, like using your skill to, overcome something.
Yeah. And she just always found a way, because she had 3 other kids that were they were doing their extracurriculars and playing sports. And my sister was really into horseback riding, and she just always found a way.
Wow.
On a one parent salary, that was military, which was not that high. So
right.
Yeah, she was magic in that way. So
shout out to mom.
My mom. Yeah, she just was really encouraging, and she drove me to all my competitions, which was really fun because it was the time when I got just mom time, which having a lot of siblings, that was its own kind of special. And and then as I got into age 14 to 15, you start to age out of the competitive market. And then I'll never forget, there was one dance I was offered, which is 2 other girls. And it was 3 weeks outside nationals. And our dance teacher that ran the studio said it was impossible to qualify that quickly for nationals. And so she gave up on us. She's like, you can try, I'll give you studio space. So we're no, we're going to do it. We're going to qualify.
Thanks for the encouragement,
nationals.
Teacher.
Oh, it was terrible. She totally gave up on us. She's like, there's no way you can qualify. These people have been working for a year. There was only 3 weeks out, but I was like, we're going to do it. And she gave us the grossest studio that had the drop ceiling that was moldy and smelled like dirty water. And we did it. We rehearsed all the time after school. I got in trouble for tap dancing under my desk at school, but we did it and qualified and won nationals, and then won overall at nationals.
This is a movie right here, Christina.
It was insane.
This is a movie. I see the scene of you tap dancing in a montage, under the desk. Oh my God. You got to play yourself in this movie too.
I know. It was crazy. It was one of those, I still tap into that little Christina when I think I can't do something, because there was no stopping me. There was everybody told us that it was impossible. It was just 3 little girls that everybody said there's no way. People have been qualifying for a year. You only have 3 weeks. I mean, it was the middle of Clarksville, Tennessee, not a very great area, in this really gross studio. And,
what another great lesson. You're getting all these lessons, your mom teaching you how to barter with her work, you basically learning what it's like to have naysayers and people telling you can't do something. And then at a young age, just going, oh yeah, watch me. And then doing it. I love this. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we just, it was just that, again, like I said, I just still tap into that. I was probably 14, 15. I still tap into that. There was no telling me no. There was no way you could penetrate what I believed in. And it was, it was the whole country of dancers that came to this place. And we didn't just win category. So we won our tap category, but we also won overall, every single dance. It was surreal. It was surreal. And it was just the power of that kind of determination. And just the fierce, and it was dancers that came from New York that had all this money. And I love that story, because it was Clarksville, Tennessee, these 3 little girls that came from nothing and just,
it's Hoosiers from a dance perspective.
Yeah. So I just still hold on. I just dated
myself, by the way. Sorry.
That's okay.
Have you seen Hoosiers?
No.
Okay. Give it a goog. You'll find it. Yeah. I'll
Google it. But yeah, and that was sort of the apex of my, dance career. And after that, you sort of have to make a choice of, do you, there was a little bit of talk of do I move to Chicago and pursue a tap career? And my mom was absolutely not. You can't move when you're, 15, 16 and leave the family, and I can't go with you. And so it was do I pursue a dance career? And then there was sort of this bottoming out of my life for a minute of I don't know what to do now.
Well, yeah, because how long is a dancer's career typically? How old do they retire? It's kind of like a normal athlete, correct?
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, a dancer's career. I really applaud lifelong dancers, because it's a rough life. You don't get treated that well. And it's what are you going to do? Music videos and teach? And, I've known some dancers out here in LA, and out in New York. And yeah, you just don't get treated that well or paid that well. I mean, that's a lot of artists, but,
yeah.
And so I kind of hit that sort of what now, and went through a stage of course, I was also a hormonal teenager. So I got really depressed.
Of course.
And just sort of bottomed out of what now. And I also really did not like high school. I could not stand high school. I just always wanted to pursue art. I didn't see the point. I didn't feel like it moved at the pace I wanted it to move. I was like, I just let me learn faster. Like, can I just read some books?
Yes.
And so again, my very magical mother, I tried to graduate high school 2 years earlier. And so, because they had this program in middle school where you could take high school courses in middle school. So I did that. I took like all my algebras, all my maths. I took like a lot of my science in middle school, but they had no plan once you got to high school to start taking college courses. There was just no plan. They're just like, just take electives for the last 2 years of your high school career. And I was
just
like,
coast for 2 years.
I was like, that's a waste of time. So I went to my principal at the beginning of my junior year, and I was like, no, that's a lie. At the end of my sophomore year, I went to my principal. I was like, I needed an English course and a science course. I was like, can I take these 2 courses after my sophomore year in summer school and graduate early? And he said no. And I was like, and that's really when I just completely went into like the darkest depression. I was like, I have no control over my life. I can't do this for another 2 years. Like, I want to go and pursue these other things. I want to see what else is out there. Like, I just really bottomed out. And so, and also there's another side thing where public schools get money for military children. So they get, it's not very large, but for every military child they have in their school, there is a little bit of a bump for the school. So maybe that was a reason to keep me there. But so I went to my mom and she's like, drop out. So that is what I did.
Thanks,
which
Mom.
I'm not saying like kids go drop out of high school. That's not what I'm saying. I was just a different kind of kid. I was just a different kind of kid. And so that is what I did. I dropped out.
I love that your mom said that. Hey, just drop out.
Just drop out. So I did, and it was really liberating. And then for a while, I did this sort of online program, homeschool. And that's when I sort of stole some of my sister's acting books. Like, she had an Uta Hagen acting book. She had, she had a Stella Adler book. And I just,
I read all these.
Yep. Yeah, I started taking all of her acting books, and I just started, I sort of went into this really quiet stage for a really long time. My mom says it was a year. I don't believe her. But I just didn't talk, and I read everything I wanted to because I never felt like I had autonomy over that. And I was going to do this online, like, homeschool thing. And then it just, again, didn't feel like the pace I wanted. I wanted to go to college a little early. And so I just got my GED and then started going to college 2 years early, or a year and a half early. I can't really remember the timeline. And that was great. But again, in college, I was like, I'm going to take psychology and guitar and theater. And like, I just, that's when I just really started opening up all the things I wanted. So I did that for a couple of years. And then finally I was just like,
I did all those too, by the way.
Yeah. I was just always an artist, and I did that. And then at this entire time I was working a million side jobs to just save money. Cause I knew it was like, okay, it's going to be Chicago, New York, or LA. And just the more I sunk into like stealing my sister's acting books, and I started taking an acting course in Nashville with like this ex soap opera actor. And I just started really falling into that. And then I got an agent in Nashville and started going out on like music videos and local commercials, and was like, okay, I'm going to really pursue this. And it just sort of.
So did you take theater in college at all?
I did. Yeah, I did. And that got me obsessed with plays, and which is really the foundation of my work is theater and plays. Anytime I feel like I'm becoming untethered from anything, I go back to plays. I feel like they're brilliant. So
there's nothing like doing live theater.
no, I just feel like that is for me, what taught me how to act,
Definitely. Did you ever do any musical theater?
A little bit, but very early on with the musical theater. I always liked just theater.
Yeah.
Theater.
My claim to fame in college was I was Charlie Brown in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's such a fun musical. But this is not about me. This is about you.
It can be about you too.
Okay, let's go. Let me tell my origin story now. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No. So you went to Nashville and you started going off on music videos, auditioning. So when did you bridge the gap to Los Angeles?
That was 2000. I mean, I decided really early on. So I saved money for a really long time and then finally packed up like my Honda Civic and drove out in 2007.
Nice.
Is when I moved out. I like vacuum packed all my stuff and whatever would fit in my Honda Civic. I drove out in 2007 and have been here ever since, except for like a year and a half in New Orleans.
There's nothing like that feeling, right? Of packing up your car and driving to Los Angeles. I'm sure you were also prepared like I was, but you still, you have a little bit of the stars in your eyes and you don't know what to expect. Were you nervous or were you just like, I got this?
It was a little bit of that same 15-year-old energy of tunnel vision where I had never been to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. I knew nobody in Los Angeles. And the way that I found my apartment was I worked at a Chili's in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Oh my God. I worked at Chili's too. Are you kidding me?
That's weird.
Wow. Worst job I've ever had, honestly.
Mine was actually great. I had the best boss that if I called him and said I had an audition, he'd be like, okay, you have a good time.
Well, you know what? It's completely your management. I had 5 managers on every shift and they would follow you around and tell you the same thing. Like one time somebody filled a glass full of mashed potatoes and sent it back and they were like, didn't believe me. They're like, how did you miss this? I'm like, are you kidding me? I didn't miss this. They put mashed potatoes in their glass so they could get a free meal. And then I had they wouldn't take your slip at the end of the night. So I would watch this woman walk around the restaurant for like a half an hour before she would even look at my slip to like check me out.
Oh, I hate that. Like when you're trying to do your checkout and they're trying to check you off to make sure you did your side work. I'm like, dude, it's never going to be this important. It's never going to be, no one's going to die if I didn't like wax the tables the right way.
I know. Or put the ketchup in the exact right spot.
Yeah. Oh,
well, I'm glad you had a better time at Chili's.
I definitely had a better, this is not a Chili's ad, but, I definitely had a better experience. I had a great boss. But I saved up 5 years of Chili's money. Yeah. But I didn't know anybody in LA. Okay. So no, I worked at the Chili's and there was a girl there that was like, oh, you're thinking of moving to LA? I was like, yeah, for sure. Gonna do it. And she said, I have a friend that is leaving LA the same month that you're moving to LA. Do you want to take over her apartment?
Oh, that's awesome.
I was like, absolutely. Totally want to do it. Can I talk to her? And in retrospect, never would do that now because I didn't know the area. It could have been in the worst area.
Sure.
So I did that, got the key, drove out to LA. The apartment was on Larchmont above the Sam's Bagels. It was like a dream apartment.
Wow.
And now it was a dream. It was just like this magical little apartment that smelled like bagels all the time. And I mean, granted, the landlord ended up being like a slumlord and I had to like move out, but it was still like for the time that I had it, this dream little apartment and I loved it so much.
That's so cool. I'm still seeing this as a movie. I love this. This is great. This is seriously like what I envisioned when I was thinking about moving down here.
It was so crazy. But again, I would never do that now. I'd never be like, sure, sight unseen.
Of course.
Don't know anybody. It was crazy. And then in my first 4 months of moving to LA, I had to move out of that apartment, sue my landlord. My mom got cancer. I broke up with my boyfriend. It was just like, here we go.
Yep.
But that's those first couple of years in LA. Always.
Oh my God. Yeah, it is. It is. I'm sorry to hear that about your mom.
She's better.
Oh, she's better.
better.
Okay, good.
So
Okay,
thank
good.
you. Yeah.
Shout out to mom
better.
again,
Yeah,
overcoming every
Mom.
obstacle.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I completely understand. Like, moved to LA with my ex-girlfriend. We were like, we're gonna take over this town. And we came down, we didn't know anybody either. We landed, we like had to rush and find a place. We got into a place and they're like, well, we'll let you move in without, we'll let you move in today if you don't if we don't have to get it cleaned. And we're like, okay, let's do it. And we had cockroaches all over the place. Oh yeah. No. So that was our first experience. It was funny because my girlfriend booked a National Hershey's commercial within like 3 months, and she made like 40 grand off of that. And I was like, oh, it's easy. This is all you have to do. Because we were prepared. We were like theater people, but we thought we were prepared. But then it was just like, oh my God, she never booked another one after that. And I was doing a lot of independent stuff, but it was just like not paying the bills. And then we broke up because she completely changed, and it was just like everything fell apart. All of a sudden I was alone in Los Angeles. So I completely understand. And yes, things do sometimes fall apart in the first year. So keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and it kind of like they feed into one another because that was always the main pursuit. So I had that apartment on Larchmont, and in that first little blip of time, I was like, I have to get a job. Like I have to immediately get a job. I didn't have like really any kind of safety net. And so I walked out of that apartment. I took like 20 steps and I went in a place. First, I went in one place across the street, and they're like, I didn't not say that I was an actor. I was very naive. I was like, I'm an actor. And so they're like, we're not going to hire you. And so like, good. No, we're not going to do that.
We haven't heard that one before.
And so I walked across the street and I was like, okay, people don't like actors here. And so I went across the street and I was like, hi, can you hire me? I'll do anything. And they're like, yeah, we need, some kind of counter girl. And they're like, what else? And what else do you do? I was like, I'm just trying to figure it out. And so they hired me right away. And then I worked there for a really long time, for years, actually. I ended up working in this restaurant. And it was great. And then one of the delivery drivers there told me about the Improv. And then I started Iowa West. So that was one of the first places I started taking classes. And then that was sort of like another snowball effect where it's like, once I started taking classes there, I started taking classes at UCB and then the Groundlings, and then found my Meisner classes, and then went to the Imagine Life. Like I just was like, I'm going to learn everything. No one's going to tell me that I don't know stuff.
I love that you did improv. I did comedy sports professionally for a year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've got a friend who still does comedy sports and teaches it. I don't know if you know him, Rick Stedman. He's an actor in the town. I know. Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, improv is amazing. It completely opens you up. I love that you did improv. Did you learn anything specifically about, acting and life from improv?
I think it was mostly just how to fail. I think you learn a lot. I think it's like you learn how to be, you're not going to die from being embarrassed. You're not going to die from trying things and failing. Like you will look stupid, but it's also like how to trust those first instincts, what that looks like, and how to just listen and be present. It's
the main one for me.
Yeah. It's a meditative process almost. And it was just a really fun community. I still have a lot of friends in the periphery that I met in the improv world. And also that's how I got my really incredible commercial agent that I still adore, that I've been with for, I don't know, over, I'm going to say 10 years, maybe longer.
Pink Hammer?
No, that's my management company. I'm with DPN commercially and with Jennifer. And I love her so much just as a human being. I'm like,
that's so cool.
Yeah. And that was through improv friends that I found her. Just a beautiful, real human. And that opened a lot of doors, and it opened a lot of doors commercially. And and I just feel very comfortable with comedy. Because I did comedy improv for 6 years. I was doing other things as well, but it took me 6 years to get through all those programs.
Well, that's something that I love about, I watched your reel and I watched a couple clips from you and different things. And it's funny because I was telling you about this dichotomy earlier, and it seems like you have this polarized, acting style. And I even see it in your art. It's like, you're either doing this really intense, traumatic work, or you're doing like super comedic, which I love. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's very true. It's also how I live too.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that because I have that gravity, but it's also, there's so much levity thrown in there. And if someone was like, "Oh, choose," I'd be like, "I don't understand what you're saying." Like
right. Why?
Yeah, I also think that's the best comedy too. It's like that you're not playing the comedy, you're playing it so truthfully. It's like there is a book that's called that, like Truth in Comedy.
Truth in Comedy. It's like, yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah, you're playing it so dead serious that it's funny,
and then with your art, with your paintings, you have these, very beautiful gold abstract pieces, and then you kind of scribble in sometimes some funny or intense comments in there, and that's kind of that same dichotomy. It's like you've got this beautiful fine art mixed in with this just kind of like I don't even know. It's just like an impulse, like that I'm just going to throw this out there. And sometimes it's humorous, sometimes it's deep. Sorry. So I was just seeing that a lot. It was funny because I saw that in your work, in your fine art, and I was like, oh, it's kind of similar in her acting, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's even like watching, you'll watch a really serious movie and you always have that kind of comic relief or that moment of levity thrown in there. It's like, you need that almost as like a breath of like, we're going to be okay. Like it, because it's like, look, the truth of my life is that there has been a lot of dark in it, a lot of, and that doesn't mean I feel sorry for myself in any way. But the thing is that I've dealt with it. I still deal with it. And I do hold on to hope. And I can also make fun of myself, and I'm willing to talk about it, and to all spectrums. Like I can make fun of myself, and I can also get into the depth of that conversation. I think there's so much power in that. There's so much power in, I can have the depth of like a really dark and felt conversation, but it's also like I can be silly and make fun of myself and have the levity. And I think that that's just living the full spectrum of life. And I agree. I want to give that to people too. I want to be like, yes, this has been dark and we're all suffering with something, but it's also like life is also still beautiful and there's so much hope in it. And I believe in people so much, even though people have deeply hurt me. It's trying to, with my work, bring all of that together and have that conversation.
Yes. And it's like when you zoom out far enough, it's almost like we were talking about comedy. There's always like the straight person in the comedy who like I think of like Ben Stiller comes to mind, right? In the comedy, and he's got everything around him is just chaotic and ridiculous, but he's going through this. He's really living all these human emotions, and it's pretty tragic. But when you zoom out far enough, it's kind of funny from like a situational standpoint. And I kind of think that with life sometimes. A lot of times I get so dark with some of the stuff that's happened to me too, some like traumatic events and things like that. And then sometimes even with when I was waiting tables for 16, 17 years and hating my life, it was like when I finally made peace with that and just said, this doesn't have to be this heavy. And I almost kind of made fun of myself a little bit. It was like the death of the ego. When you zoomed out enough, it was like, this is not as heavy as it needs to be. And as soon as I made my peace with that, it just kind of opened up. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that stuff too, because I feel like there's definitely a deep spirituality in your work and what you do. I know you talk about Buddhism in some of your stuff that I've read, and how important is that in your life and work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for noticing that and picking up on that. It's profoundly important for me because, again, it's something I could talk about for a very long time, but through the suffering that I've been through in my life, I feel like there's a crossroads that I hit where I could let it destroy me and become a cynic and not see the good in people, or I could become, like they say in Buddhism, you become a seeking spirit, where you seek a way to turn your suffering into mission, suffering into a way of speaking to the world and using it for good, and I turned into that seeking spirit of like, this will not destroy me. Like I've watched so many people, again, even my parents, and not be destroyed by suffering. And so how do I turn this into mission and not become a victim, but become a survivor? And that became like just, again, seeking. And I just happened upon the particular type of Buddhism that I now practice. And I felt that just connection with a deeper self and also a release that just works for me. I mean, in Buddhism, they say too, like all paths lead to enlightenment. So it's really however you get there, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or agnostic, however you get there is the right path for you. For me, it's Buddhism.
And however long it takes too.
Exactly. And that's what's so profoundly beautiful about just all human beings. But for me, Buddhism is just the way that I get there, and giving that to the world. And inherently, it's just the idea that all of us have a Buddha nature, which is a deeply wise part of ourselves. And how do we get quiet and find a practice that taps into that interconnected wisdom, and just listen to that wisdom and get connected with something that's bigger. Like I call it that sort of untouchable part of us that can't be broken and it can't be destroyed, and it's interconnected with everything, and it's so healing, and it's for so long I felt broken by the things I had gone through, and I felt not good enough, and I felt just worthless, like I needed all these external things to tell me that I was worthy or lovable. And Buddhism is just, that doesn't exist in Buddhism. The thing is that how you are exactly right now is inherently perfect. You are the Buddha. You exist as that. There is nothing that you need to do or push or prove or have. And the more I seek guidance from these amazing practitioners of Buddhism, you just feel that energy of just deep acceptance. And there's something about being in that energy of deep acceptance that's so healing. And I want to give that to the world. And I think that's going to be a lifelong pursuit in my art, but it's just I want to make people feel seen and accepted and just held within themselves, and that their story is perfect and the way they exist is perfect. And give that peace to the world. That is, that's my goal.
That's beautiful. I love it. I connect with it so much. I feel like we could talk about, we could do a whole separate podcast talking about this.
True.
No, I love it, seriously, because I've tried to get into this with a few other people, and I think we just kind of ended up focusing more on art. But it's so important to me too. I have a meditative practice every day. For me, it's you're right on, just getting quiet, having that access to yourself. I think there's so much noise in the world right now. And I know when I was going through a really hard time and I was getting over some of my demons from my past, even childhood, Eckhart Tolle was huge for me. I listened to him all the time, and it was just it really centered me, and I still need to revisit that. And I think that's what you're talking about. This spiritual practice, it's interesting because I got frustrated at the beginning because it was I would have it and then I would lose it. And I started to accept that that's just part of the process. You're always going to be having to remind yourself of these deep inner truths, right? And I don't know if you experience that too.
No, I think so I used to have deep frustration with that as well. But the more I seek guidance and the more I study, the more I realize that's the gift as well. The suffering is also, there's a thing in Buddhism where they say when you're suffering, and you have to really practice to understand this, but I think you'll understand this. It's not a condescension to say Buddhists, when you're suffering, will say congratulations.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that even through the falling off and even through the suffering, that will lead you back to the enlightenment or the practice or the deeper understanding. So there's the idea that even in I just so resonate with what you're saying, because I'll go through these days where it's I'll call my mom sometimes and Mom, I'm a really bad Buddhist today. Because I'll just be like, I'll be feeling anger and like lack of self-worth and just really lonely and just like bad at everything and ugly and just all these things that you think a Buddhist is not supposed to feel.
Right.
But it's also like, that's part of the profound process of Buddhism, where it's just like, all of these things are leading me back to the practice. They're leading me on the exact path of finding a deeper understanding, because then I go to I also work with an organization that just helps mentor other practitioners. So then I'll go speak to somebody that's suffering and I'll be like, I can relay that story to them and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm not alone. So through my story, it's of use, if that makes any sense. So
of course
I have to have those experiences, or if I'm just sitting on a mountain being enlightened all the time, I'm not really of use. I'm not of use.
Oh my God. It's so true.
Yeah, it's so true. So it's like it's like all of it's of use. All of the suffering is of use. So it's like finding even peace in all of that. It's like, okay, this is just where I'm at right now. This is just where you're at right now. It's just like so freeing.
It's so true. It's funny. It's like, it's easy to find enlightenment on the top of a beautiful mountaintop, meditating 24 hours a day, but try doing it in Los Angeles traffic. And then,
or in line at the post office.
Oh my God. Exactly. Yeah. That's the time, the DMV. That's the best time to practice. It's funny. My wife and I were watching Vanilla Sky the other night, and the moment you said it to me, it's like, oh yeah, remember his friend? He's like, you can't have the sweet without the sour. It's like the sweet and sour speech. It's so true. You need to experience both of those to understand what you're going through. And it's a beautiful practice. I mean, I think I've gotten to the point where I still struggle with it from time to time, but I realize that without these moments of defeat, I can't really understand and process the beauty in my life as well. So.
Yeah. And that's like, I listen to your podcast and I feel the gift that you're giving, because you speak about your story and your suffering and the things you struggle with, and like that, and that's how you give. That's how it's just amazing. So,
well, thank you. And I feel the same with what you're sharing with us right now in your art. I think in some way, and we're going to segue into your art with this because I want to talk about this more. I could talk about this the whole time, but I want to, I want to get into the art too. But that's what you're doing with your art. I think if you're really sharing, deeply your own personal story through your art, I think it becomes universal, or at least it's something that a major portion of the population will see and it'll resonate with, and that'll affect their lives. I think the more personal you get and the more you give of yourself, the more people will receive it. So, and when you were talking about it, it reminded me of the, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Kintsugi?
Kintsugi, yeah.
Yeah. You're basically talking about, that's almost like the embodiment of what you're talking about. Kintsugi. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that relates to your art?
Of course. Yeah. Kintsugi is the Japanese art. It's an ancient art of pouring real gold into broken pottery. So the idea is, it's also Japanese. I'm a Japanese Nichiren Buddhist. And so I love Japanese culture, of course. And in the ancient Japanese art of Kintsugi, they pour, when pottery breaks, they take real gold and they fuse the pottery back together with the gold. And the idea is that through the breaking and the forging it back together with gold, the item becomes more beautiful and stronger, because gold is so strong. And that is a metaphor for our lives. As we break and we suffer, we come back together more beautiful, more resilient than we were before we broke. And it's very Buddhist. It speaks so much to the experiences of my life. And coming across Kintsugi and the way, it's just, that's what I want to give to the world. It's just, the more that I explore that and study that, and just my deep respect for Japanese culture and Buddhism and what it's given me, I just would not be here today without that sort of understanding, as like, I've forged myself through this suffering and chose to become stronger. Because I do think it's a choice. I think you can choose to be destroyed. I could have chosen to really die from these things that I've gone through, or, turn them into good and forge myself and make myself stronger. And so I love that. And that's why I love gold. I mean, gold also, I'm really obsessed with comparative mythology and origin stories. Like I was saying before, I really love tracing back our stories, and like even comparative religion, how like all of our religions have very similar stories. And it's just
Are you a Joseph Campbell fan then?
Yeah, obsessed. Yeah, I've actually made it a goal to read everything he's ever written, and I've almost done it, which is crazy because some of his stuff is like textbooks, but it's just that feeling that I get that we are so interconnected, even in these stories and religions that never really even cross-pollinated. You can see these sort of parallel stories that we're so interconnected and seeking in the same way, and seeking acceptance in the same way. And so, I just really love the Kintsugi and gold. It exists in all of these stories. There's references to gold. Same with Amrta. Ambrosia or Amrta exists in so many different religions and mythologies. It's crazy.
Well, it's very hopeful. And you're right. I mean, I think we were talking about this a little earlier. You see the people who are beaten down by life. You almost see the light is just kind of gone from their eyes. And I think those are people that in whatever you can say, look, they had a hard time, these unfortunate things happen to them, but you're right. At some point you make a choice to let that either take over your life and be a victim of that, or you make a choice to embrace it and make it like Kintsugi and make you stronger and more beautiful. And I think it's wonderful what you're talking about. And I think it's cool to see that you embody that as well.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's never to discredit that. I've also been that person. I've been that person.
Sure, of course.
The light has been sucked out of me. So I never want to take away that people need that moment. But
oh yeah, and I'm sorry. I want to clarify too. I don't mean.
Oh no.
I'm not ragging on anybody. And you can be that person, and it's never too late to kind of turn it around. It's never too late to have that moment where my suffering is worth something. So it's not like it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to be that way the rest of your life. Sometimes you need that period to evolve. I know I went through a 15-year period of just darkness and depression. And if you'd met me in that time, you might have said, well, this person, aside from his art, is obviously a sad luck case. But I think I needed that to get to the point where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I understand that for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I told you we were going to talk about your acting a little bit. We went past it, but I just wanted to share with people because I think it's awesome what you've done. NCIS, The Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives, Paradise Lost, Grey's Anatomy. Amazing. Like, are you still balancing your acting and your art, or do you find yourself going in one direction?
I am lucky enough to still be balancing both, which I love so much. It's funny on social media, I think we're so gauged by what we share on social media. I share so much of my visual art on social media, and I'm not a big share what I'm working on acting wise on social media, because I like to share when things are solidified.
Of course.
But it's been pilot season. So definitely putting a lot out there during pilot season, audition wise. So just waiting for something to land. And then also, I've been working on the beginning stages of an off-Broadway play with, for New York, which is crazy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're doing a revival of Hurly Burly, which I love so much.
And I love Hurly Burly, the Sean Penn, Robin Wright.
Yeah,
film. I love it.
Yeah, it's a David Ribb play that's just so good and very timely for, kind of where the world is at right now. And so we've been rehearsing that on Zoom because I'm the only LA actor. And so, the idea is that we're one of the first revivals up in the fall. So that's been amazing. That just has kept again, I always go back to theater when I really want to feel alive acting wise. And so that's definitely kept my heart alive during this quarantine time. So I'm so grateful for all the people that are putting that together. And so we'll see what happens.
That's so exciting. Hurly burly. I love it.
I know. I'm very, very excited for that. And just really grateful. The actors are just like, I just feel really humbled to be alongside these incredible people. So that'll be exciting.
I know it's off Broadway, but if it happens, is it going to be something that is going to be available for other people to see somehow?
That's what they're doing the research on, because we already have the rights. So it's a matter of like, would they be able to stream it? I think it's just, there's so much stuff with the union and everything that they have to figure out. So I kind of leave that up to the producers, because I'm just like, I'm here to act. But I will definitely like obviously keep everyone updated, and it'll be very exciting to see, because it's always like based on COVID restrictions and everything, how,
of course,
what's going to happen with off Broadway. And so we've been trying to, see what's going to happen with investors and all that, but that's something I'm very excited for. And then, staying on top of pilot seasoning, and it's always just waiting to see what's going to land. I think that's that from your experience with acting. It's always just that deep faith of like, I always say the jig is up for me. I'm going to be an actor and painter. So there is no other choice. And I think that sort of determination of like, there's nothing else I'm going to do. So something has to work.
You burned the boats.
Yep. Everything else is, I'm just floating down the river.
So I know the feeling.
Let's go. Yeah.
Well, it's funny too, isn't it? Like I did so many years of like, okay, well, I'll try this as a fallback. And what I realized is at some point I'm just like, I will literally probably kill myself if I have to do one of these other jobs. And I know it's not something for other people where it's that heavy, but for me, I tried and I was so unhappy for so long that I was like, okay, then I'm just making this work because this is the only chance I have. It's like the Eminem thing, success is my only motherfucking option. Failure's not. It's really, that resonates with me so much. So it's cool to hear you say that. But I mean, but to look at you and your career, what you're doing, of course, you're already doing it.
Thank you for, reflecting that back. I appreciate it because, we all have those days where it's like, what, wait, what?
Yeah.
What? But it's also the alternative is, I really want to be an example of what's possible. I really want to be like, for the women I talk to, and I just want to be an example of what's possible. And so the only way I can do that is by not having that fallback, by not being an example, it's just like, this is the only way that I can do it is just, that's just head on and say that I have something to say and just be brave enough to do it, because the alternative is like, I could be miserable doing anything else. And I don't want to live that story. This is the story that I want to live. And so I have to just be brave enough to get through the days where I'm scared. And it's like, we're all scared of something. And so I just, I'm willing to be scared of uncertainty, because the one thing I am certain is that I am a storyteller. That is something where it's like, I'm not certain of a lot of stuff, but I'm certain that I tell stories. So, that's one thing I can hang a little hat on.
Well, and there's no growth and none of these things happen without throwing yourselves out there. It's like the Brene Brown thing. I know it's a quote, but being in the arena, you're not going to be able to do it without actually putting yourself out there in the arena. And it's easy for other people to judge what you're doing. But until you've been in the arena yourself, you know what I mean? Just you can keep your mouth shut because it's hard. And I just love it. For me, it's one of those things where I've kind of started to become not addicted, but I love being in a place where I'm uncomfortable because I know that's where the growth is happening and that's where the possibilities are.
Yeah, that's so, even with visual art, which I know that's the next like pursuit going down with my visual art, is just making myself deeply uncomfortable, because I was talking about that with my sister, who's also a visual artist, is just, you got to push that edge in order to have that discovery process of what's next and what else can you give. And I've definitely been walking around, at least in the last couple of weeks, with deep discomfort, because I know I'm in that discovery process, and I just have to be willing to do that.
Well, it's the same thing you're talking about with your Buddhism practice. It's like, okay, this is part of the path, is being uncomfortable. And, also part of the path is with being an artist, and as you know, with being an actress too, it's getting rejections and bouncing back all the time. That's just part of the deal, right?
Right. That at least that's one thing I'm very used to.
Me too.
I've gotten it. That's one thing I'm very resilient to, because of
that's so good
doing it for so long,
Yeah. Well, so I wanted to ask you, so I saw a little blurb here. Is it true you're a vegan, or you were just talking about a specific vegan restaurant?
I am pescatarian, so I will eat fish, but everything else I eat is vegan.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to say plant-based now, because vegan for some reason has a weird stigma attached to it, I think sometimes. But when I first started doing, because I love sushi, I'm also a big Japanese culture person. I went to Japan, had Japanese friends in college. And,
amazing. Yeah.
I love it. And I got addicted to sushi. So when I first started making the transition, I was like, no, I'm going to keep some fish in my diet. But we finally went the full-blown plant-based. But I do miss fish. But yeah, I just saw that blurb and I wanted to ask you about it. So, well, the podcast, so I haven't asked you about a couple things. I wanted to ask you about your superpower. What is something that you do when you're not feeling like creating, or you're feeling a little blocked or something? Is there anything that, like a go-to habit that you have that unlocks that for you?
Yes, it may not be that exciting, but I go on very long walks.
That's extremely exciting. That's amazing.
Yeah, with nothing, like no music, no podcast, no nothing. Extremely long walks, because it's almost like movement meditation for me.
Oh yeah.
So that's something that I will forever do. It just unlocks something that's almost like, because I do believe that like a lot of our stuff we keep in our body, so there has to be some sort of, or I'll dance, like, because again, I feel like a lot of our world we keep stuck in our body. So I think moving our body is, whether you're a dancer or not, you got to move your body if you're an artist.
Definitely. Yeah. It's, there's a connection with like the breath and the movement and being outdoors too. I feel the same way. So many people, so many artists have talked about, and even like scientists who've made major breakthroughs talk about going on long walks and just getting ideas, almost like absorbing ideas from the ether,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like that.
Yeah, it does. And it is very meditative. I think that's great. So would you say that's something like a daily routine of yours, or do you have any other kind of cool daily routines that you like to practice?
Daily, well, I do, because I'm Buddhist, I chant. So my meditative, I do an active meditation, which is a chanting process. So that I do twice a day.
Cool.
So that's morning and night.
Is there like right before you go to bed?
Yeah, it's right when I wake up and right when I go to bed.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's very active meditation. So I have a specific place I do that every day. So that's probably my biggest like daily routine. The rest of that would be, sometimes I'll go into like writing if I feel blocked. Like I'll just do free writing, because I did the Artist Way morning pages for a really long time. Yeah. I actually I have 8 years of morning pages, which is insane.
Oh, wow.
I did that.
You could do like a retrospective at some time of just your morning pages.
I know. I have 8 years of morning pages, which is...
That's so cool.
Yeah, that helped me a lot. So anybody that's ever blocked, I always say, do morning pages.
Yeah.
I did it for morning anxiety before I found chanting. I did morning pages, and it helped a lot with that like morning anxiety I used to have.
Getting those ideas out of your subconscious.
Yeah, that helps a lot. And then I have certain things that I read. I read a lot of like Buddhist guidance. I read anything that sort of gets me out of that hamster wheel of thinking. So for me, I just call it a toolkit. I have a toolkit that I will pull from if I'm feeling like depressed or stuck, and whatever in that toolkit, sinks me back into myself, I will pull from and just do those things until something works.
That's nice. That's perfect. Do you ever have days where none of it works?
I do. And that's when I usually realize that it's either exhaustion or I'm not, because there is a thing like scientifically, if we're stuck in the same routine, we need to refire a different part of our brain. And that usually means I need to go somewhere different. So I need to drive out and walk on the beach, or I need to go to a coffee shop I've never been to, or I need to go like look at different art. Like it usually is boredom more than it's like I'm stuck. And so I try to be like, just again, gracious with my system and be like, okay, am I truly stuck, or do I need to refire? Because that is true. Like if you go to somewhere different, you're actually like awakening a different part of your brain, because it's having to categorize and fire up different neurons in your brain. So I'll just be like, okay, I just need to go to a new coffee shop today. So that, and it will work, like where I'll just, okay, I'm awake now. And so that's another tool too, where it's just like, oh, I'm just stale. I've been going to the same coffee shops, going on the same walking routine, been going to the same whatever. I need to refire something. And so that's another tool that works really well too, where it's like, it seems like it's mundane, but it's just like, it's again, you're trying to keep the system awake and alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. There's some times where I can be self-isolating from time to time, and I'll get into a routine where I'm just like doing the same stuff, or I'm just in my studio, and I just start to get a little social anxiety or depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, the last thing I want to do is talk to somebody. But, the moment I actually force myself to talk to somebody, it just all melts away. It's like, oh, I just needed to get out of my head and do something different and talk to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, that's so useful. I had a therapist say that years and years ago. She said the days that you don't want to go to therapy are the days you need to the most.
Yeah. Yep. Of course.
Because you just get stuck. You get stuck.
You do. And I would even say that's similar with painting. I know some people are going to push back on this, but like there are days when you don't want to paint, right? And you're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. And then you force yourself to get in the studio and you do so. I know some of my best work has come out of that. Does that make sense for you too?
Yeah, I think that resonates. I think anytime it's resistance, anytime you're feeling you're running up against that deep resistance, it's just like, I have a 20-minute rule. I don't know. I came up with this years ago. I have a 20-minute rule, and I do it with exercise, reading. I call it creation work, which is the work I do with acting. I probably need to write something about this 20-minute rule. So I read something.
Yeah, this could be a bestseller.
That says, yeah, there you go. Someone's now going to steal it. That's fine. Whatever.
Trademark?
I know. Somewhere I read this thing where it takes 20 to 22 minutes to get into the flow of something. Mm-hmm. So I have this agreement with myself where I'll set a timer on my phone, and I'll be like, okay, I will do 20 to 22 minutes of this activity. If I don't hit like a flow state with it, I'll change the activity. It's just not the day to do it.
Okay. I like that.
And so it works though. It profoundly works because it sort of lets you off the hook of like, if my body feels awful after exercising for 22 minutes, it's not the day to do it. Or if I hate painting after 22 minutes, it's not the day to do it. Or if I can't fall into this role after whatever. But what happens is like, okay, sometimes that 22-minute timer goes off and I'm like, oh, I hate this. And I move on to the next 22-minute activity. Or sometimes that timer will go off and I will just go for hours. And it's a really structurally profound like thing to do, because you can do anything for 22 minutes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's so freeing, but there is something that happens after that little marker where you can kind of tell if it's just like you're too tired that day, or if you can get into that flow state. Like it just really works for me.
It's a nice way to have a conversation with your brain too, and just be like, okay, you don't want to do this, just give it 20 minutes, and then it's like a little hack into your brain.
It is. It's a little agreement where it's just like, you're not just open-endedly sitting down with this like mean brute force. You're giving yourself an out. And I think that's really important when we are exhausted and we live in such a hyper disciplined like world. It's like, no, sometimes you need to chill out. Just give yourself an out.
Exactly. Yeah. We even do that with movies. If we're like, one of us doesn't want to watch something, we're like, all right, just give it 20 minutes. And if you don't like it, we'll watch something else. And then, half the time you just end up watching it because you like it. So I've watched many movies that I didn't think I was going to like because of that. So I think that's great. So anybody who's listening, if you're having a problem getting creative, just give yourself 20 minutes. Try it out. I love it. So, okay, I wanted to ask you about biggest failures or a failure that you've had? I know quote unquote failure. A lot of people push back on that word, but something that didn't succeed in your life that you were able to use and learn from.
Oh man.
And if you don't have one, you can say
no. Pass. I probably have like 100 of them. I have this is the first one that came to mind, so we'll just go with like whatever the first instinct was.
Go with it. I
had this audition 100 years ago because I've lived so many lives, and it was an audition for an agency that a dear friend. So this dear friend that's very successful as an actor set up for me.
It's Brad Pitt.
It's Brad Pitt. We're home. No, not yet.
Not yet. Right. There you go.
No, this actor friend of mine saw an indie film I did. This indie film actually did really well. And
is this the one that won awards?
Yeah, I won some festivals and awards.
I saw a clip from that. It was awesome.
Thank you. And so he set up a meeting with his agency. And it was one of those awful ones where you go into a conference room and they're like, bring in a prepared scene. And there's like 40 people. There wasn't 40 people, but there was way too many people there.
It feels like 40 people.
It feels like 40 people, and they're just cold.
Oh,
and I was a baby, and I have never in the history of ever, knock on wood, dropped lines. Like I just don't, lines stick with me. And I went in there and I read it with a girlfriend of mine, and I dropped the line. And they just were not the people that were like, it's okay, do it again. They're like, okay, thanks, bye.
Oh my God.
It was in Beverly Hills. I'll never forget. It was in Beverly Hills. And it was like a wheelhouse scene. I could have done it in my sleep. And it was just not my day.
Yeah.
And it was,
it's bad energy in the room, probably.
It was just bad energy in the room, because what I think it was is you can tell when you go into a room and they're just doing their client a favor. They really have no interest in you. You can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it. And they were just doing their client a favor, and I get it, but it would have been better if they had just said no.
But also be a human being and give somebody a chance.
They were not human beings. They were just not human beings. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't care. I can override that. I was not at the time. I was just too much of a baby and too much in that, like, please like me mode. And I just went out in this like courtyard, and I think it was like Century City Mall or something.
Oh yeah.
And I just like collapsed into my friend, because it was that feeling like, oh, I still remember the feeling. It was that feeling where I had completely failed myself. Like there was, because even when you don't get the role, but you show up for yourself, it doesn't matter, because it's like you showed up for your art. But I had that feeling in that moment where I was like, I failed myself. Like it's over. Like if I can't show up for myself when I get the opportunity, how am I ever going to do this? How am I ever because the thing is actors always feel is like, just give me the opportunity. Just give me the opportunity and I'll show up.
Exactly.
And so as an actor,
and it's hard sometimes to get the opportunity to get your foot in the door.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're constant. The story is so much like, just give me the opportunity, guys.
Yep.
Like I've been doing this for 700 years. Like, just give me the opportunity. And so, baby Christina was like, I finally got the opportunity and I failed myself. I don't know how to function from now on.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to live with myself.
Yeah.
Like it was full. I mean, I was full, like collapse into my friend. Like, I don't know how to heal from this. And it was just, you just have to be like, it wasn't my time. Like these were just not my people.
Exactly. So did you take that with you was it something where you just kind of developed a thicker skin after that, or?
Yeah, it just has to turn into, I mean, I still want to die when I think about it, but
because it's horrible, because they're like sitting there quietly judging you,
Yeah. I'm just like,
give me something. Yeah.
Judgy judgers. I'm really cool. Do you just want to talk to me? Like I'm fun, but it was just like, they're just not my people. Like this is just not my moment. These are not my people. Cause then you go on to work with like Oscar winners and they're really nice to you. And you go on to do other crap. And you just realize some people will not see you. And then other people will. Because it's like, it's not like I haven't dropped lines before or made weird choices, but it's just like some people see you and some people don't.
Maybe you would have hated working with them.
Oh, they would have been terrible.
Horrible. Yeah.
I would have been so bored. They would have been so terrible.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also just like that. I think as art, it's like the realization that it's like, I'm trying to show up for myself more than anything else. Because again, it's like I've done auditions and not booked them, but I've been so happy with my own work that it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Because it's like, if I'm only doing this for money, I'm going to die anyway. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, it's funny. Maybe I've shared this on the podcast before, but when I was acting, I always found, because I think a lot of actors are people pleasers and they want to be, I'm still a people pleaser to an extent, but like, you just want people to come and they think you're great and you want them to love what you do. And I'd have a lot of anxiety with auditions. And I always found the times when I came in hungover, like back when I was drinking, those were the times that I booked it. Like, so I would book it without a callback because you know what? I didn't give a shit. I was just like, I'm up there, I'm doing it. There was no pretense. I didn't care what they thought about me. And they're like, I don't know what it is, but so he doesn't care about us. So we're giving him the gig. I don't know what that is. And I'm not saying for any actors out there listening that you should go into all your auditions hungover, but there's something about that energy of like, you don't need this, therefore we're going to give it to you, you know?
Yeah. The not care energy is a palpable energy, but that's all energy of just like, I'm doing this for myself. And
it can be positive too. It can be like a positive, I don't give a shit energy. Like, I'm doing this for me and my energy, like, you can't keep me down. And that's also very attractive.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing about art though. You have to reach the point where it's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell these stories for myself, take it or leave it. Like, and at the end of the day, you'll find your galleries, you'll find your acting people, you'll find your place in the world with that longevity and that feeling of there's a place for me and I can't continue to sacrifice myself trying to fit into everybody else's category.
Exactly. Yep. I couldn't have said it better myself. Do you have any advice for your younger self? Maybe it doesn't have to be about acting or painting or anything. It just can be in general, or it can be about that. What would you tell your younger self now that you've learned all this?
Oh, so much. I think the biggest thing is just like, you're enough, you know, like you're enough in the feeling of imperfection and the sensitivity and the fear and all of it. Like, it's all okay. And it's all gonna be okay. I think it's just, and I think it would be like, don't hide as much. Like, don't hide as much trying to be perfect or trying to be enough, you know?
Oh yeah.
I think it would just be something around all of that. I think.
I love it. I took a deep breath when you were saying it, because it was just like, yes, it's just like a nice reminder at any time, even when you're doing well, it's a nice reminder.
Yeah. I think I still have to tell myself that stuff. I'm better at saying that to myself now, but I wish I could go back and just like free her a little bit more, you know, just free her and let her like not audition for the part of Christina, like just be Christina.
You are Christina, be Christina.
Yeah. Just be, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's so true. But you know, it's like we were talking about earlier, it's a thing that's like a lifelong practice. I think you get better at it, but you still have to remind yourself from time to time. Like, I still feel like I slip back into that. And I always kick myself later. It's like, why am I trying so hard? I am that already. Just be that. So I think that's great advice. Thank you for sharing that with us. I wanted to ask you, what are you working on now with your art, with your visual art? What's coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I may have some trigger warnings, so just throwing that out there. So it's a story that I've kept close to my heart for the last 10 years. And it's again wrapped around the suffering, which I put the first piece in the program show. And it is a story that of my when I was raped and almost killed 10 years ago. And and it's just, again, it's talking about that self-acceptance. And, you know, because I like I said, it happened it'll be 10 years on June 12th. It happened June 12th, 2011. And
Wow.
yeah, I was raped, almost died. And then I lived with a guy at the time, and he couldn't handle it. So I also lost, the guy I thought I would marry and the place that I lived. So it was going through a criminal investigation while losing everything.
My
And
God.
and so it's just creating pieces around my journal entries from the time, and also the like the forensic documents, like you still have everything. So it's creating pieces, and also deep, like going more deeply into the Kintsugi, sort of explaining really the suffering in order to say, not that I'm a big victim, but like if I can survive this, like, you can survive anything, you can
Yeah.
lose everything and you can come out the other side. And just like, I think sometimes I walk through life and I have so much optimism about life, but it's because of that experience. It's like, I feel like, looking down the barrel of what almost death looks like, and being stripped of everything, I just feel more alive now, you know?
Wow.
Um, and so it's just like sharing with that, and also life goes on. Like it's also taking some of the journal entries I have are like these really mundane, like to-do lists of like, go buy hair dye and walk your dog and get groceries and call the
Right.
detective. But it also has like call the detective, and like, it's very weird. It's just like these
Yeah.
weird things of just saying like, this is not just my story. This is like our story, and just giving it back to the world and saying, let's interact with these things. I don't just want it to be a folder in my life forever. And
Yes.
it also gives, again, more context to the gold, and just really, I really want to be honest as an artist, and give all of my stories to the world. And that's what I promised I would do, just to myself. And so this is my way of just being really, really honest. And so, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's my next phase.
That's amazing. First of all, thank you for sharing that. I wanted to be respectful. I didn't want to bring up anything without you bringing it up. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'm really sorry that happened to you. It's horrible, but I think it's amazing that you're taking that suffering and turning it into something beautiful, like you're doing with everything else. And you're helping other people, you're helping other women. So thank you for doing that. That's amazing. I know that's hard to talk about it. And so I applaud you for that. And thank you. Is this what the RAIN charity? I know you did an event recently where you spoke and you told your story. Was this centered around this?
Yeah, so RAIN is an incredible organization. It's the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. And RAIN was part of what really saved me during my entire process, because it's like the national network for resources for all of this, and advocacy for all sorts of abuse. I like to say survivors, not victims. It just has a better connotation.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I've worked with RAIN. I've actually trained with RAIN's the RAIN Train program, which is advocates that do the phone answering services, which I actually used when I was going through my whole process, because they can connect you with services all around for all different things, even like suicide, abuse, incest. They'll give you like the hotlines, and they're a 24-hour hotline. So I've trained with that hotline as well. So yeah, it's just an incredible network. And so I try to direct as many people towards RAIN as physically possible, and connect it with a lot of my acting as well. And just like anytime I mention this story, I try to mention RAIN as well, just in case it is triggering. And
Yeah.
yeah, just direct people towards that, because
So if anybody wants to check it out, it's RAINN, right?
Yeah, .org.
.org. Okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
I think I interrupted you.
No, that's great. It's fine. So yeah, again, because it's taking this story that, because unfortunately, like our criminal justice system, and that's what I'll get into, like with this, I was talking to Mike about eventually building a solo show around this, and
I
what
love
that
it.
looks like. Yeah. And just
This
taking
could
all
be
these,
very powerful.
just taking the documents and showing like, where the system has so many holes in my experience with working with the criminal justice system. But, there's amazing things like RAIN and Peace Over Violence that are trying to fill the holes of our criminal justice system. And but we still have so far to go. And like you said, like this is not just my story. This is so many people's story. This is just my, the specifics of mine are what they are. And so maybe this can open a dialogue. And that's my goal, is like the more we, and it's even you talking about your specifics with trauma, is like the more that we just pull the veil back on the things that we feel shame about. It's like, there's no reason to feel shame that we have a story, no matter what that story is. Like the more we free and liberate ourselves, like the more we can walk freely through our lives, whether that's depression or it's rape or it's abuse or it's, whatever it is. It's just like, I just want to free people. I want them to feel seen and I want to free them. And, I can only do that by freeing myself,
That's so true.
So.
Because there's a lot of fear and shame around all that stuff. Like there's many reasons why people don't share it. But it's very bold of you to do that. I love this idea of you building a show around it. I think that's going to be extremely powerful. I can't wait for that. Yeah,
it's going to be a journey, but I'm now, I don't know if excited is the right word, but I'm ready, I think is the right word. And so, and again, I feel so lucky to know all of you because I feel so embraced and supported. So,
well, I'll be there for sure. And I think it's going to be cathartic for a lot of people. And I think for you too, I think there's just going to be like an unloading of this once it's up, for public consumption. Wow. No, that's amazing. I know the criminal justice system has failed so many rape victims. I know there's a lot of like rape kits out there that'll never be even looked at. Isn't that right?
Just in LA County, I checked last week, because mine is unprocessed, which is part of the reason, that my case went sideways, but there are 13,949 just in LA County that are unprocessed.
Oh my God.
That doesn't include the newly collected one. Those are just the unprocessed, and that's just in LA County. And sadly, LA County has one of the lowest rape prosecution rates in the US.
Why do you think that is?
Because of, again, district attorneys who are the ones that decide to prosecute rape or not, like to follow through. And the process is really painstaking, which I'll get into in my show. Like as a victim collects evidence and everything goes through with detectives. But, district attorneys are elected officials. They're not assigned. And so the more you start to decide, a district attorney is starting to decide whether or not to follow through on a case, they want a case they can win. And so they're going to choose cases that are really high percentage. And so rape, they often don't push through because they're like, oh, if I don't win this case, it's less likely I'll get elected because my stats will go down. And so they often just dismiss rape cases because
it's politics then.
It's politics. It's completely, but if you look at someone like me, if I were a politician's daughter, they'd be like, oh, well, I want this to go through because it looks better for my career because it's a high profile. And so you really, I'm very lucky that my rapist was arrested, which is a huge deal. That still doesn't happen.
Wow.
And so he has a rape on his record, but he's not in jail because of the DA.
So he's like a sexual predator then?
He's a sexual predator, but he's still walking free in LA, which is for me a whole PTSD situation.
Yeah. That's
so,
horrific.
But that's the case with most, even the rarity, which I worked with my detective, of the fact that he got arrested is such a rarity. That means that the case has got enough evidence, but they're not going to prosecute the rape kit and put him in jail because of the DA. So you're getting into a broken system of politics, and LA is just, it's like less than 5% of rape cases are prosecuted. So
wow.
it's our world is still really, really far behind. And I think the more we have conversations about it, the more we can shine a light and start to fight it. And there's just too much shame where we don't have conversations. And that's what we have to change.
I completely agree with that. And also just, there's got to be a different sort of reward system out there for people, like incentivize them to do the right thing than what's the most political thing they can do? What's the thing that's going to help their career the most? And that's a huge topic. I know it goes into so many different areas of politics, but yeah, I'm hopefully, with people like you talking about it and sharing, it will change a little by little, but that's horrific. And I still can't believe it. Those are the figures,
Yeah. Let's hope that it's, the world is about incremental change, and let's just hope that people feel more and more free to tell their story and to liberate themselves and realize that they didn't, do anything wrong, and put more pressure on the system to change. And that's what we can hope for, is incremental change.
Well, and don't you think a lot of it too is fear? Like, okay, well, since we know these statistics, why am I going to put my neck out there if this person could potentially roam free?
Well,
is that part of it?
Yeah, the fear, and also how difficult it is to even go through the process of being a survivor that's going through the investigative process, which is its own torture. Like
being re-traumatized.
Yeah, you're being re-traumatized over and over, and you're being treated like the criminal. And that's not it's not a pitying statement. It's just like you're being put in cop cars and you're being interrogated and you're doing a pretext call, which I don't know if you're familiar with a pretext call. A pretext call is where you're taken into a room with a detective and you're asked to call the person that raped you.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And
oh my God.
You're asked to call them and act like you enjoyed what happened in order to get them to admit on the phone what they did.
This cannot be a thing. Are you kidding me?
It's real. And my pretext call was over an hour and a half long.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so we're doing these things to victims, and then we wonder why they can't survive the process. They can't. They're being broken down in so many different layers, and then you're re-interrogating them and I understand why they ask the same questions over and over, because they're trying to see if your story is going to change.
Sure. But they're also basically asking you to go undercover.
Yeah. And pretext calls are illegal in a lot of states. They're not illegal in LA.
As they should be. Wow.
Yeah, they should be illegal. And so that's another part of like, how do I, or anybody start to advocate for them becoming illegal, because they're not admissible in court. Mm-hmm. And so because they're tape recorded without the person's permission. So it's just, there's so much that we could get into. And how do we start to have the dialogue? And that's my biggest thing, is like, let's start to have a dialogue. Maybe this solo show could be that dialogue.
Yeah.
But if anything else, even if it's among the ShockBoxx people that know about it, then let's do that. Let's have the conversation. And the more people that are aware, that's amazing.
Yeah. And people listening to this podcast too. I mean, you've enlightened me, definitely. I thought I knew quite a bit about it, but I had no idea about these pretext phone calls. That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for enlightening us. Thank you for sharing the story. I can't wait for the show. I mean, I think it sounds like it's going to be very powerful. Sorry, was there anything else you wanted to share about that?
No, I'm just, thank you for asking, and, thanks for being so open and receptive, and I'm excited to move forward. And
yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, this is going to sound completely out of left field now, but, tell us about your dogs.
Yay! No, that's never. You can always ask about my dogs. I love my dogs so much. God. Maisie and Lily, which Maisie is amazing because she's 11, so she's been through everything with me. Yeah. Maisie is probably like a Sheltie mix. She's like, I don't know, 18 pounds. She looks like a little fox.
Yes.
Super magical. Me and my sister say she's like a woodland creature.
I love foxes. Those are like my power animals. So.
Yes, exactly. I have like a tattoo of Maisie mixed with a fox. Like, I
think that's so cool.
Yeah, she's completely magical. And then Lily, her little companion, looks like the miniature version of her, but she's so dumb. I call her super stupid. She's like 8 pounds, just so adorable, really, really cuddly, really needy. and I love it secretly, even though I make fun of it.
Yeah.
But they are my constant companions because I love just having the energy in my house, and I love animals. I grew up, deep South. So I love having, I was always the one bringing animals home. And so my mother would be like, we cannot keep another animal. So I have to be surrounded by animals. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. They make a cameo in all of your social media too, for anybody who wants to check you out. By the way, how can people check you out? Can you share that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm mostly on Instagram. That's really the only one I use. I have 2 Instagrams. So acting and a little bit of art is Christina Elizabeth Smith on Instagram. And then all art is Amrta Art, which is AMRTA Art.
The old school spelling.
The old school spelling, which I love. And so, follow. Yeah,
for sure. And you won't be disappointed in either. I love both of them. I like also that you separate those. I know that's difficult, but I do think there are benefits to, like I have another artist friend who separates Instagram just with different genres of their own art. Like let's say you're a pop surrealist and you do fluid painting, like he does that on Etsy, he does it on social media. And I think that has some advantages. Did you do it just to kind of keep your 2 personas separate or just to focus in, or was it like some sort of deep algorithmic thing?
No, I don't think it's, I tried never to do anything for the algorithm. I'm very anti the algorithm, to be honest. Yeah. The art, there was a very freeing and healing aspect of having Amrta art without my photo attached to it, without like, look at me, this is what I look like.
Of course.
It was just about the art. It was just about, this is what I am as an artist. There's something very beautiful and healing to me about that. And, and then on my Christina profile, it's everything. It's my dogs. It's me being silly. It's me living my life and going to the beach and acting and, my friends. But the Amrta account is sacred to me in that it's things I read and the art that I'm doing. And there is something, I don't know how that will evolve. I'm very open and accepting of how that evolves, but it feels very sacred that my face is not attached to that, because the acting is very much about what I look like. It's very much about that. To have something that's not about the way I look is healing.
Definitely. Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, I understand that too from back in the acting days. It's nice. It's almost like it's almost a Buddhist thing right there too. Anti-ego. It's like you're taking away the story aspect of it, and like here it is. Here's my art. Yeah. I love that. It's beautiful.
I think that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, check out both of them anyway. They're both great. Christina Elizabeth Smith and Amrta, Amrta. This has been awesome talking to you. I feel like we could do another round down the road if you want.
I would love that. that. I'm very grateful to be here. So thank you so much.
Of course. And do you feel we're ready to finish up, but is there anything we left out? Anything else you want to talk about before we do?
No, I think that was just so great. It's so fun to talk to you. So thank you.
Cool. And it's been great getting to know you a little more. So can't wait to see you at a live show. I know we're going to be talking tomorrow on the Zoom opening, or well, it's in the past when you're listening to this, but but check out Dude Unmute Yourself also when you get a chance from ShockBoxx. Christina, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great.
All right. Talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.